There's a saying that goes, the high divorce rate reflects two different trends. On the positive side, people are embracing more humanistic and less feudal views. On the negative side, people are being too hasty about marriage without fully thinking it through. As society has progressed, we have the freedom to fall in love and the courage to divorce. In some cases, such as when domestic violence is involved, divorcing is a necessary step for self-protection and is widely accepted. But what happens after a divorce? That's a different challenge. For elderly parents whose children are going through a divorce, it's crucial to remain level-headed and avoid making certain mistakes. Here are 3 things elderly parents should never do if their children get divorced. 1. Don't take full responsibility for raising the grandchildren. Know your limits. Take the example of Mr. Dong, an elderly man in my neighborhood who has one son. After his son got mixed up with a bad crowd, his daughter-in-law became fed up and filed for divorce. Initially, the son's ex-wife was supposed to have custody of their child, but Mr. Dong insisted on keeping the grandson, feeling that the child was part of the family and couldn't be given to an outsider. Mr. Dong is a retired worker with a modest pension of about 2,000 yuan per month. His wife, who never worked, doesn't receive any pension. While they could just get by on this income, taking on the full responsibility of raising their grandson quickly drained their finances. Mr. Dong was forced to take a part-time job at a restaurant washing dishes to cover living expenses. But finances were only part of the problem. Raising a child also requires time and energy. Mr. Dong, already elderly, found himself struggling to keep up with the demands of his grandson's education. Wearing reading glasses, he tried his best to help with schoolwork, but it was too much. Eventually, Mr. Dong was let go from his dishwashing job for working too slowly, and their situation became even more dire. When Mr. Dong asked his son for financial help, his son replied, "I never asked you to take care of him." His ex-daughter-in-law, who had since remarried, simply said, "I can't deal with the past anymore." This situation shows how important it is for grandparents to recognize their limitations. Elders may have the desire to raise their grandchildren, but they may not have the means or energy to see it through, especially when relying on a pension. What if the elder becomes ill? It's unreasonable to expect an elderly person to shoulder the full responsibility for a grandchild, particularly when the parents are absent or unreliable. In cases where children can't be relied on, hoping that grandchildren will provide support in the future is a dangerous illusion. Grandparents should help when they can, but they shouldn't take over the parents' role. Raising children is the responsibility of the parents, not the grandparents. 2. Don't turn the ex-spouse into the enemy. Keep things civil. It's natural for elderly parents to feel protective of their children during a divorce, but some make the mistake of openly vilifying their son or daughter's ex-spouse. They tell everyone how terrible the ex was and how their own child was completely in the right. It's easy to fall into the trap of taking sides and spreading gossip, but doing so only exposes family problems to the public and invites ridicule. In reality, even after a divorce, ties with the ex-spouse often remain, especially when children are involved. As educator Malcolm Knowles once said, "Marriage isn't a lottery ticket. You can't just tear it up and walk away even if you lose." The ex-spouse will continue to be involved in your grandchildren's lives, and it's in everyone's best interest to maintain a cordial relationship. For instance, a grandparent may say things like, "Your mother is bad, always chasing other men," or "Your father is useless and lazy, never giving you money." Such comments only foster negativity in the grandchildren and may lead them to resent the grandparent, as they are still forming their own views of their parents. It's far better to remain neutral and fair when discussing the situation with grandchildren. If your child was at fault in the marriage, it's important to acknowledge that and encourage positive behavior. If the ex-spouse was problematic, find constructive ways to deal with it without bad-mouthing them in front of the grandchildren. 3. Don't pressure your children to remarry quickly, let them heal. Every divorce leaves emotional scars, and it's natural for someone who has been hurt to be cautious about entering a new relationship. Elderly parents should encourage their children to rebuild their confidence and consider remarriage when the time is right, but never rush them into it. Think about it. For a divorced man or woman with children, re-entering the dating scene comes with significant challenges. Jumping into a new marriage too quickly can lead to further disappointment, as they may simply be settling for the sake of companionship rather than compatibility. As writer Lei Shuyan once said, marriage is like a pair of shoes, only the person wearing them knows if they're comfortable. Whether or not to remarry should be a decision your child makes on their own. As long as they are a good person, working hard and living positively, that should be enough. Some divorced young people may choose to date but avoid getting remarried. In such cases, elders should adopt a more open-minded perspective, avoiding constant nagging or judgment. As for gossip from outsiders, it's best to ignore it rather than getting caught up in defending your child. Ultimately, it's not possible to silence everyone, but you can control your own reactions and maintain your peace of mind. A first marriage and a second marriage are not the same. A rushed remarriage could lead to even more pain. It's better to take the time to carefully consider the future and seek stability. 4. In old age, focus on your own life and avoid meddling in your children's affairs. It's a well-known fact that marriages often deteriorate faster when elders interfere too much. In contrast, marriages where parents maintain a hands-off approach may seem chaotic at times, but they tend to last longer. The key is to look beyond the surface and think deeply before acting. The most difficult thing isn't being unaware, it's pretending not to know when you actually do. While it's natural to be worried when your child's marriage is in trouble, sometimes the best course of action is to step back and let them handle it on their own. In short, as we age, it's important to be wise and, when necessary, play the role of the wise one who pretends to be foolish. If your children's marriage is struggling, fretting help, and sometimes letting go is the best course of action. From now on, strive to be wise and occasionally play dumb.